to the Master of None, where if you are looking for expert advice, you are in the wrong place, my friend. Alright, today we are going to work on some old food storage that we got, and we are going to see what we can do to turn it into chicken feed. So, let me show you what we are dealing with. What happened here is that I have got a neighbor who, they're an older couple, and they moved out. They moved to Utah to go back with their friends, or go back to live with their family, and they left me a whole bunch of their food storage. This isn't even half of it. That's the amazing part. It's all just it's been in the back of my trailer for a while. It's been rained on, and so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get it all organized, and then we're gonna talk about some things we can do with this food storage. Some of which is to just make it into chicken feed, instead of just throwing it away. So if you're wondering why I'm going to tackle this project while it's raining, simple answer is because this is Oregon and it's springtime and it's not going to stop raining, so we just do it in the rain. First load into the lawnmower trailer. We still got a whole bunch more to go. Man, it just looks like trash in there, doesn't it? It's all that cardboard and stuff. So we're gonna drive this around and go put it in storage. It's been about an hour. I am absolutely soaked to the bone. The rain is finally starting to let up just a tad bit, but I have got most of this food storage organized, at least somewhat. I don't have a room to get it perfectly organized, but let's kind of take a look at what we've got. All right. So I have done, I've gotten old food storage a lot in my life, and generally what I do with it, I take some of it and I put it in my own food storage, and I take some of it and I feed it to my chickens. So I'm pretty familiar with this process, but there are some things in here that I am not used to having. First one is these dried whole egg solids, and the other one is powdered butter. Those are a little bit weird. We'll talk about those in a minute. We're going to talk a little bit about food storage. We're going to talk a little bit about chickens. So what we do have, we got some tomato crystals. I've kind of got my powdery stuff over here. Some cornmeal. So tomato crystals, if you mix them with a little bit of water, you get tomato paste. A lot of bit of water, you get tomato sauce. We have potatoes, white, dehydrated, sliced potatoes. And then let's go through. We got, this is basically just all kinds of different vegetables. Onions, beans, carrots, all kinds of salad blends and stuff like that. And then we've got some fruits, from apple slices, banana slices. Just fruit medleys. My favorite one that we have are these apple nuggets. Those actually smell really good when you open them up. So I have opened a lot of these already. And then we have this. This is another one that I'm not used to seeing. We have multi-purpose food. Sounds delicious. Beef-like granules. Ham-flavored granules. And then we've got some chicken-flavored granules. And then we have actual chicken chunks. That one I don't know that I'm opening. I don't know. We'll have to do some research on that. All right, so let's kind of talk about what we can do with this. Okay, so this pretty much epitomizes everything I believe is wrong with food storage. I think food storage is a great thing. I have my own food storage. But we tend to, and I don't want to talk bad about the nice couple that gave me all this stuff when they were moving. It's very, very common that this happens. So most of this food storage, the dates on it are from 1960 to 1975. So most of this stuff is pretty old. And frankly, I'm not eating most of it. And when I looked up these dried products, the dried egg solids, the powdered butter, that stuff has a 5-year shelf life. Like, that's way, way too long for me to want to eat. What I will say is that I've been really impressed when I have opened it, what it's looked like. It's actually very much impressed me. I opened up some of that powdered butter, and I'll tell you, when I opened it, I was really expecting like the worst, but it looks like powdered butter, and it actually smells pretty okay. And I may have accidentally dumped some in the driveway, and the neighbor's dog ate it, and he didn't die. So there's that. The dried whole egg solids, when I first thought of those, I was imagining that somebody threw a bunch of hard-boiled eggs in a can, and I was like, that's nasty. But really what that is that's powdered eggs. So there's dried whole egg solids, there's a couple of different other weird types of powdered eggs, but it's all basically powdered eggs. Basically everything I've read says that's got about a 5-year shelf life. Most of those were canned in about 1973, so I'm not going to eat them, for sure. And there's a couple reasons I'm not going to eat them. One, I'm not in a place in my life where I need to try to eat food that's questionable. I have my own food storage that's much newer, and I have my own food that's much newer. But this is kind of what I think happens with food storage where we go wrong, is that we think of it as a checklist. Like, I've got food storage, I have 7 years of food storage in my house, I'm going to live forever, the world can blow up, and I'm going to be fine. Well, this is what happens. You end up with a lot of really bad food, and I've seen a lot of people who will move this stuff around with them, and they store it forever, they move it, it's heavy, it takes up tons of space, and they're never going to eat it. The way food storage, in my opinion, should work is it should be a much more dynamic thing, that you are moving through and eating your food storage. Because here's the deal, if you don't know how to eat this stuff, if we do have some massive earthquake or whatever and you've got to eat your food storage, you have no idea what to do with it. You're frankly eating this dehydrated food. If you switch straight to all of this in one foul swoop, you're gonna get sick. Like, it's, that's just how it's gonna be, because your body's not used to it. So one of the things we didn't see in this group of food storage that you will see in most food storage is wheat. It's probably the most common food storage item. And the reason there's no wheat in this is because I gave most of it away to somebody else who was going to throw it in their garage and say, I have food storage, and never use it. That being said, they did make some bread out of it, and this is really old wheat, and they said, you know what, it tastes really stale. Like, well, that's what happens when you have 50-year-old wheat. Yeah, it's still viable. You can still make bread out of it, but it isn't good. So, you want to go through your wheat. So what do you do when you get this old food storage? In my opinion, you feed it to your chickens. If you don't have chickens, then you go get chickens, because you should have chickens. How do I get this? Like, I've done this a lot. I've lived in Utah, I've lived in Oregon, and I've always been able to get a hold of other people's food storage to feed my animals with. And frankly, it's easy. You just help people when they move, and you be involved in circles of people who have food storage. Whether if you're in a Utah, like the high Mormon community like Utah, and you want to find ways to feed your animals, whether you got chickens or anything else, put an ad on Craigslist or whatever. Say, hey, if you're moving, I'll come get your food storage. Or just get to know your neighbors, and when they're moving, and go help them move. And then they're going to have this moment where they look at their food storage that they were so proud of forever, and they're realizing, hey, I'm going to take this across the country or something, and this stuff's really heavy, it's expensive to move, and I'm never going to eat it. And they start looking at this stuff really differently, and now they want to get rid of it. And then you're like, you know what, I'll take that off your hands for you. So that's how I get this stuff. That being said, so wheat will be the most common, and I think it's the most abused. People get it it's so often in people's food storage, and people have no idea how to do anything with it. I've met a lot of people who have tons of wheat in their food storage, and they don't own a wheat grinder. Wheat will do you no good if you cannot grind it into flour. It's just absolutely useless. Also, if you are going to be thinking in terms of preparing for the worst, your power is probably going to be out if in a time where you're going to be needing to use that in an emergency situation. You need to have a hand grinder. Granted, I don't use a hand grinder on a normal basis because they suck and they're hard, but you know what? I have one in case I need one. So all that being said, I also, we use our wheat. I've got tons of wheat in my food storage, but we grind it, we make it into bread, we make it into pancakes, we use it. And that's, I think, how we should do it. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm not at all. My food storage, largely because I've gotten it from so many other people, is pretty disorganized and has a lot of crap in it, and I need to go through my own food storage and see what needs to get out to be feeding the animals and what I can actually start using. So, but let's talk about how we're actually going to use this stuff. All right, I've opened a couple of cans here. Really, everything we do is going to fall into 3 categories of how you can feed it to your chickens. Feed it to them straight, soak it, or cook it. So this here is apple nuggets. These actually smell amazing. And I am half tempted to make something with these and actually eat them because they do smell really good. They smell like dried apples. Okay, that we're going to feed them straight. We can probably give you a quick look here. Chick, 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 chick. They absolutely love this stuff. They go nuts for it. It looks like chicken feed. It tastes really good. They seem to really like it. Of course, they're not going crazy for it now because I'm making a video. But that's the first category. Just feed it to them straight. The second category is soaking it. And this is going to be the bulk of what you want to do with the food storage to feed it to your chickens. If you feed most of this stuff to them, they just won't eat it. They'll peck at it a little bit, but they just won't eat it. So these are tomato flakes. This is a salad blend. There's just some random vegetables. And this is actually one of my favorite things to soak that I found in this batch. And that is these, potatoes, the dehydrated potatoes. So I just chuck them all in a 5-gallon bucket. So I chuck 3 of those in a 5-gallon bucket. Kind of mix it up a little bit. Doesn't really matter what's on top and what's not. And then I'm just going to fill this entire bucket up with water. I'm going to give that bucket 24 hours soak. And then I just scoop it out and feed it to my chickens. I've got 15 chickens. And I can generally feed them for 3 days on that bucket. So it's generally about a can a day is what I end up with in food. I mean, that being said, the biggest thing you can do to cut down on your chicken feed costs is to open your chicken run door. Let them out, let them eat the grass, let them go eat bugs. That'll do the best for you, cutting down your chicken feed budget. But the other category we're going to get into is the cooking category. So generally speaking, rice, I'm going to cook that. I just cook it, go give it to the chickens. That's pretty easy. One of the biggest things you're going to find in a food storage situation is beans. And that's what most of these 5-gallon buckets are. They are buckets of all kinds of different types of beans. The thing with beans is that you've got to cook them. You can't actually give dried beans or undercooked beans or partially cooked beans to your chickens. So beans, when it comes to food storage wise, have they're classified as having an indefinite shelf life. They'll last forever. So I can take these beans technically and I can cook them and eat them myself. And I might try that. I might. I've had some bad experience with really old beans in the past. I've tried to cook them and just had some that I just could never get soft. So I might give these a try it again. But this is definitely way more beans than I'm going to be able to eat, especially since I got my own beans in my own food storage. So what I'm going to do is turn them into animal feed. So yeah, what you're going to do with that is just cook them. And put them in a pressure cooker, cook them down, and just give them to your chickens. And that's going to be pretty easy. It's a pretty easy way to do things. So the one that we haven't talked about yet is the most interesting. And that is these totally expired whole dried eggs, powdered butter. I actually had another one in here, and that I used all of, and that was it was solids. Corn syrup solids. I had corn syrup solids in here too, and I'll show you what I did with those. So this right here is what I call chicken bread. So what I did with all that powdered stuff, powdered butter, powdered eggs, I don't really care what it is. I just threw it all in a bowl and mixed it all up until it came into a dough. I actually took some other vegetable, metal-y kind of stuff, and I just tossed it all in there, threw it in bread pans, and then baked it into basically bread loaves. And the chickens freaking love it. So that's how I turned all that stuff, which, I mean, technically isn't good anymore. Chickens don't seem to care. And so it all worked. But that's how I turned all that stuff into chicken food. Pretty much it. That's kind of what I've done to make my chickens food out of old food storage. When it comes to chicken feed, you get a lot of arguments that are really in favor of, just using store-bought chicken feed and don't feed them too many scraps and all that. Those arguments generally come from the manufacturers of chicken feed. I mean, I have nothing against chicken feed. I use it myself. I don't use it all the time, though. I really believe in giving your chickens as varied a diet as possible. They really are descendant of a wild animal. They're not that far off of their original bird that they started off as. So, you can feed them a lot of different stuff, and as long as they're getting a variety, they're going to be pretty okay. There's a lot of stuff out there about stuff you shouldn't feed your chickens. In my experience, if your chickens are kind of free-ranging, if they have access to a lot of food, even if you give them the stuff that they shouldn't eat, they won't eat it. They just don't eat the crap that isn't good for them, with the exception of styrofoam. For some reason, the chickens just seem to love that. But yeah, so just go ahead and, just get a little creative in what you feed your chickens, and you'll be good. Feel free to like and subscribe. Give me a comment down below. This is my very first video. Maybe I'll actually make another one. Who knows? All right, thanks.